My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from RapidSOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact on the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
I didn't let my children eat marshmallows for years because I took a call for a woman, and she was just at work, a grown woman, and she was eating a marshmallow and she choked. Well, the fire department got there, and when you eat a marshmallow, if you're choking on a marshmallow, it becomes like gummy and like in your throat. And so they had tried all the things they could try. They even tried to, they said they tried to cut and get in there. And it was, as they were pulling it out, it was just like melted marshmallow, and she didn't make it. And it's something like that you think is just, it's just, she's at work. She's just eating a marshmallow at work. And then her life is over,
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by RapidSOS, Safer Together, and a big shout out to subscribers of the podcast as always, but especially all of you who are watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. I thank you very, very much for everything, because as I always say, and it's true every single time, I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you and your support. So thank you all very, very much. It is February 4th, 2026. Oh man, time is going by fast already. And so much stuff that's been going on. I've been dealing with diverticulitis flare-up. If you don't know what that is, just simply Google it. You'll find it. It sucks. It is horrible. And I can laugh right now, but I will say that about a week ago, just laughing hurt my stomach, and it was not fun, because all of you know how much I love to laugh. So that's what I've been dealing with. However, pushing through, on the mend, and everything has been good. And just feeling good today. We've got a lot of things coming up in reference to not just episodes of the podcast, always powerful stories and such, but different projects. One of those you're going to see and hear towards the end of this episode, and speaking engagements, classes, all types of things that are coming up. So make sure to look out for all of those. Now, I'm excited for my guest today, because we've been kind of talking about this for a while, and we were going to do this episode, and then we both got really busy. So we are here now today, and I am very happy to have my guest here. Her name is Gina. She's an ECC Engagement Manager with RapidSOS, as well as a 911 professional. Yo, yo.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you.
I am honored and very happy to finally have you on to learn a little more about you and your 911 experience. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Like you said, we've been talking about it for a while, so I'm very excited that we're finally getting to sit down and do it.
Yeah, and I sent you a message yesterday,
Yeah.
just yesterday to see, and I forget how you put it, but it was basically like, what, you forgot about me or we're not cool anymore? I don't know, something to that effect. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh no. Oh yeah, that made me laugh. I was sitting here working on things, we're chatting, and I'm just so happy to finally have you on here. And so I do want to ask right off the bat, because I've seen some of this on social media, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, or things like that. But you because you worked with RapidSOS and stuff, the company sometimes has like an offsite, and it sounded like you were there last week in
Yep.
Florida,
Mhm.
kind of battling the weather as well, trying to get out there. How was
Yeah.
all of that?
Got super excited about going to Orlando and then got there and it was cold. So not the greatest. I mean, I'm in Chicago, so a little warmer than it was here, but yeah, it was amazing. The entire company comes together and, it's a chance for us to learn from each other and, talk about where RapidSOS is headed and, be together, and had some amazing special guests with us, and it was a good time.
That is awesome. I love when companies bring everyone together to be able to do that and really show a lot of appreciation, not just for those that work there, but also those special guests that come in. From what I had heard, what I was told was that some special guests were there from Cass County out of Michigan.
Yeah.
They are part of that 13 seconds video that the company had put out with that amazing save. So I just love that you guys were able to do that. But before you got to this point that you were on the private side of 911, you've got a history in 911 and dispatch as well. So let's go back in time and let's learn a little more about you. So how did you get into public safety to begin with?
Well, so I come from a law enforcement family. My dad was a Chicago police officer, my brother, my cousins, my grandpa, everybody, right? So my intention was to be a Chicago police officer. I started going to school for criminal justice while I was testing. And while I had taken the test for Chicago. My brother got called. I was still waiting. And while I was waiting, my dad actually saw in the newspaper. Do they still have newspaper? I don't even know. So
Every
that
so often.
that the local dispatch center near my house was hiring dispatchers, and he's like, why don't you just apply, see what, while you're waiting. I applied and got hired and never looked back. So not, yeah.
It's interesting. A lot of people end up saying, a lot of people will come in to dispatch, kind of like the way you said it, waiting for whether it be law enforcement, fire or EMS or whatever. But then when they get into dispatch, it gets into your blood kind of fast, and you end up deciding to stay. And that's
Yeah.
what happened with you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Fell in love and felt like it was where I belonged, and I felt like I was really good at it. So
And
I
you've
stayed.
been doing that, or you did that for just, over a decade, right?
Yeah, started
And
in 2006. So yeah, and made my way through three different centers over my 911 career in three different counties here in Illinois. So yeah, it was, and then I came to RapidSOS.
so when you first started out though, and you applied, did you get a chance to do like an actual sit along or anything?
No, at that time there was not. There was just, you came, you did a little orientation, and they kind of briefly ran down what to expect, kind of thing. Um, and then you're just in there.
Do you remember at all any of those things that they told you of what to
So
expect?
yeah, it's funny because not there really my first center, but going on. So the second center that I worked at, where I was a supervisor, I had amazing leadership there, and the director there, she taught me something that I used then at my center where I was an assistant director. In the orientation, we say, you're going to work on your birthday, my birthday, Jesus's birthday, your children's birthday. Like, giving that full kind of, idea of the expectation is that you're available and you will work weekends and nights and holidays and, really preparing people. Because I think a lot of times if you don't know or don't expect it, and then it comes to the time where it's like, hey, now you're mandatory overtime for an extra 4 hours of your shift, and now you're going to not have a weekend off for 5 years, 10 years. If you don't fully communicate that with people, I think it's a place where we lose people sometimes once the reality of it hits. A lot of times even training is, we had 6 or 8 weeks of classroom training and then 8 weeks of floor training. And the 8 weeks of classroom was Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, so you're still in that like honeymoon phase of, oh yeah, I'm here Monday through Friday. I'm just learning, and then I go home and then the reality kind of hits.
Oh my Lord. You just took me back. Yeah, because we used to have this saying when I was in dispatch. The last center that I was at was 24/7, 365 nights, holidays, weekends, and forced overtime.
Right.
So when they ended up telling you, when you found out like all this stuff, how did you feel? Because I know a lot of times when people hear that, just like you said, if you don't have those expectations or set those expectations right off the bat, and people learn a little bit afterwards when they've gotten kind of used to this, so would you say 8 to 4, right? For all the classroom and all this other stuff. And then you hit them with, yeah, all the birthdays and everything that you were saying. And yeah, sometimes people do leave. So when you were told this, did that matter, or was it just, you know what, this is what I want to do,
Yeah,
and I'm just going to get into it?
I don't think necessarily it mattered. One, because I was young, I didn't have a family at the time; it was just me. And two, because I came from a law enforcement family. Like my dad worked midnights for many years when I was young, and we did have to do, Christmas on a different day, or whatever that was, because the life of a public servant is you're there when you can be. So
Right.
I don't necessarily think that it was something that was a deterrent for me, but there were some times that were like, man, I just really wanted to go home. And then you get, oh, somebody called off. Now you're going to stay for 12 hours. And it's like, whew. I loved it so much. And that it didn't, even in the times that I felt like, that sucks. I
Yeah.
was still happy to be there. So
Now, if I can go back a little further really quick because of what you said just a moment ago, do you remember hearing maybe, a call go out or something over the radio and your dad ends up like taking off, or a family member takes off or whatever to go and do the service that they do? Do you remember any of those things growing up? I mean, what was that like for you as a kid?
um I do. So like with my dad, he was pretty high ranking in the Chicago Police Department. And so
Mhm.
it was a lot of times where he would be like, it would be something big is going on and he's gotta go. I think though that like, since it was never something I didn't know. He was a
Mhm.
cop my whole entire life. And
Yeah.
so it just becomes like, you worry and you hope that everything's going to be okay. Like even so, 9/11. So my I actually worked for an airline. September 10th of 2001 was my first day working for an airline. So September 11th was my second day. And
Oh,
we didn't,
geez.
when it all happened and everything, my dad was still on the job and nobody knew. Everyone's like, Chicago's going to be next or whoever's going to be next because all these things were happening. And I remember
Right.
that being like one of the times that I really was like, and I was 21, so I was, an adult at the time, to really have the wherewithal to think this could be dangerous. And like that was one of the big times that I remember thinking like about his safety in that time, in that moment.
Oh man. What a profession to be in, especially just before all of that happening and all, but also just to think, because you're right, that nobody knew where the next thing was going to be because it was just so all over the place and shocking.
Mhm.
So yeah, to have that feeling or those thoughts as well, like just I'm gonna pray that he's okay, that nothing else happens. Honestly, I can't imagine that being well, older, right? You said you were, around 21 or whichever, but
Mhm.
still, that's your dad.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that happens and you're all right. I used to, when I worked in dispatch, and the team that I was on, their husband's boyfriend, whichever, were out on the road, and I would ask them, like, how do you do this? Like, how can you be on the radio and someone call out and they're on a chase or something? And they used to say to me, I just pray and wish them well, that they are aware of everything that is going on, and they rely on their brothers and sisters that are out there, and I know that they're trained well, and what happens happens. And I would sit there thinking it would still kind of freak me out. Like, I would
Sure.
probably be cool, but in the back of my mind, I'm freaking out.
I was married to an officer for a
Mhm.
while that I dispatched for as well. And so that is and having the feeling to know that you have to trust when you're not there, you have to trust your fellow dispatchers, your coworkers
Mhm.
to keep them safe. So yeah,
Oh,
it's not an easy thing to do.
yeah.
My husband at the time, he had gotten into a bad car accident, and I wasn't working at the time, but he was pretty badly injured. And I made the mistake of listening to the radio traffic back when he called out that he had gotten hit, burned in my brain.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that there are things that just don't go away. I mean,
absolutely.
different sounds, and things can trigger it as well. I mean, there's so many different things. So going back now to you had mentioned there was 8 weeks, right, of in-class training, and then you've got the stuff when you come out. So were you taking any calls though during that time when you were learning, like, protocols, policies, all those things, geography?
No, I mean, we would do like practice calls, but we were
Mhm.
not live taking calls, not until you get out on that floor and do those 8 weeks of on the floor training your CTO.
So you're going through all of that training, and then they tell you, okay, Gina, today you're going to be doing phones. How are you feeling at that moment? Because I'm sure, let's kind of set the stage for those who are watching and listening right now. So you're in dispatch, right? For one, like, how many consoles are there? How many people are working at a time?
Sure.
And are you feeling overwhelmed or anything during this time?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first center, so I spent 12 years at the same center as a
Mhm.
telecommunicator, moved on to a supervisor at another center. So in those 12 years, so all three centers I worked at were consolidated centers. This was a smaller one. There was 5 people working at a time. So
Mhm.
you had a call taker, and then you had 2 police, 2 fire, but everybody took phone calls. The call taker was just like an extra person. So
Mhm.
we would take a call, and if you had something that was in progress or an active call, you would just say, "Hey, I'm going over your band," and you'd key up on their radio and put that call out, like voice dispatch that out while you're putting the CAD ticket in, just so you can get people going. And so, yeah, I remember being overwhelmed, but I also feel like I had amazing training there, and so I felt confident, like even confident enough, right? And I knew that I could rely
Yes.
on
Yeah.
my trainer, and I knew that they would jump in if they needed to. But yeah, of course, you're shaking in your boots. Like, what is it going to be? What is it going to be? So for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. That when I first started in dispatch, I mean, I found out that I was working, or that I got the job, and then worked my first shift that same day.
Yeah, I remember you telling me. Yeah.
Yes, and I was there for 25 minutes. I watched my trainer take one call, and then it was my turn, and I remember just freaking out.
Rightfully
In the in
so.
in the back of my mind, freaking out, but I was like, "Okay, let's do this." But then going to the central dispatch, I mean, the whole dynamic was different because now I'm with a team, the call volume is way higher, and I'm, doing all of my in-class training and stuff, but they really pushed me through my training because I had, like, almost 4 years
Right.
of
The
training
foundation is
already.
there, right? Call, like, taking a call is always going to be taking a call. Um,
Right.
yeah.
But with some of those calls that came out there, like, right in the beginning, I was like, "Holy crap, like, this is different from being in Central Florida in a small town where there really wasn't a lot of call volume or a lot of like, super crazy things that were happening, and now I've got all of this stuff where the first call that I listened to, the first day of training, was a 1A to 5A shift that I went in for. And I go and I sit with my trainer, and we're let's see if I can pull this on the camera. We're using the umbilical cord. I love that you just started laughing. You know exactly what I'm talking
Yep,
about.
100%.
and I've got my headset on, and I'm listening. And that first call, I will never forget, is it was a guy who was just driving by. He was going to call in for a deer that had been hit and was crawling on the side of the road. It turned out to be a person.
Oh my.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it turned out to be a person, and I'm sitting there listening, and I remember like my jaw dropped as I'm listening to this, and my trainer looks at me, and then she looks back as she's typing. And so what happened was the guy had a shotgun or rifle, one of the two. I forget. He had a firearm, and he attempted to take his life, and he slipped and he shot his jaw, and it was just kind of like dangling off, and he was crawling on the side of the road. And so, we get everybody out there. I'm not sure. I don't know what happened with the gentleman. Of course, we don't always get closure, right? We don't know.
Right.
And at the end of it, my trainer looks at me and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah. I said, "I wasn't expecting to hear that as the first call here for tonight, but yeah, I'm fine. Why?" Later on, she ended up telling me, she's like, "I thought you were going to leave that first day." I said, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, your jaw was open." I was like, "Well, because I was listening to that, and that's not what I expected to hear the first time, but I'm in it to win it, man. Like, I'm here." So with that said, do you remember some of your early calls that you took while you were in training or even just in your career?
I mean, early calls. So one of my first shifts released as a big girl dispatcher by myself, no trainer, was 4th of July. Which if you've ever worked 4th of July in a 911 center, I almost didn't go back. 4th of July is the worst day to where the busyness and Illinois, fireworks are illegal. So every call is, my neighbor has fireworks. My dog is hiding under the bed because he doesn't like the fireworks. My kids can't sleep, and it's just busy, and it's call after call after call after call. And I was just so overwhelmed, not even with the that they're huge emergencies, or it's just the overwhelming it's just, you hang up and it's ringing again. You hang up and it's ringing again. And so that's one of my big first early career is working that 4th of July shift and being like, whew, I might not come back. But I went back over and over again. So yeah, I mean, it was so long ago that I think initially nothing really sticks in my head as early calls that really stuck out, other than having that early in your career working that 4th of July and being like, good Lord, is this how every day is going to be? Thankfully it's not, but
Right. Yeah. No, it's not always like that. And yeah, a lot of the calls that come in on 911 are also not emergencies.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that people just sometimes don't get or don't understand. Like, it's not constant 911 like an emergency. And it's even hard to say that way, because anyone who calls in, that's their emergency at that
Right.
time. So can't really say that, right? But some of the times people would call in and like that, talking about fireworks, or it would be, "Can you tell me what time the fireworks are going to be going
Oh yeah.
in town?" And I'm like, "I've got another one on hold," or parade times or trick or treat times, or something like that. And it does happen.
Oh yeah.
And we just got to do what we got to do.
Right. You got to be ready for that. You could have those 5 calls that are on a 911 line that are not really emergencies, but that next
Mhm.
call could be.
Yeah, exactly. The next one could be something that is just off the wall. Now, do you ever feel like, because you mentioned I might not come back because it was so many things were happening coming in and everything. Do you feel like if you had not gone back if you had stayed or anything. Because I know there's a lot of people that I've talked to who have had different situations, or even a bunch of calls coming in, or a certain call. They go out to their car for a moment to kind of decompress, and then they go back in. But they have said, if I didn't go back in, I probably would have never been in this profession. I would have completely gone.
I don't think so, because I did take a brief 911 hiatus. I left
Mhm.
911 for a few years. I worked at a railroad as a rail traffic controller, and I couldn't wait to get back. I felt like 911 is where I belong. I'm like a very service oriented person. I need to feel like I am doing something to be helping, or to help my community, to help people. And so I feel like I probably would have found my way back. Like I would have, if I had left, I might have said, okay, well, maybe I should give it another shot. I mean,
I like that you would have done it either way. And I'm curious, did it make it easier with a lot of the stuff that you were going through during your dispatch time to come from a public safety family? Like, did you ever talk to your dad or anybody else about some of the stuff that you dealt with, or was it just like business as usual?
yeah, I don't think that back then there wasn't, if I talked about anything, it was the funny stuff,
Mhm.
right? The comical calls, the things that, get you through, the funny things you talk about with your coworkers on shift, or the strange things that people say to you. But the bad stuff, or the traumatic stuff, or the stuff that sticks with you, we didn't talk. You just shove it down, stuff it down, stuff it down, stuff it down. And so, yeah, I don't think rarely would I have had those conversations with anybody, even with my dad, who comes from my whole family, even it just was never, it was never something that you felt like you could talk about, or we weren't taught to talk about it. You just on to the next call, and you don't have that time to step back from whatever those horrifying calls are,
Yeah.
and process it.
It's very true, because I remember in the beginning trying to, I guess, really process what it was that I was going through. And I had to go through or figure out what's going on with me first before I could open up to others. And then once I was able to do that, once I started writing things down and really getting it out and realizing how therapeutic it was, then others they were able to open up as well. And I think that's what's awesome about this profession as well, is that we end up finding out that we're not alone. We're not the only ones that are dealing with all of these things. And it started getting a lot better. Now, what I want to ask as well, because you kind of mentioned this, what do you remember some of those strange things that that you used to hear on the phone, or some of those things where you just thought, is this real life right now? What the heck is going
Oh,
on?
of course, of course. Obviously there's several that stick out in my mind, but like of the strange, we had I had a call from it was a taxi driver before Uber Lyft was even a thing, and he
Mhm.
had a woman in the taxi, and she was intoxicated. Well, they hit a deer, and she got out of the car in the middle of the roadway and was laying in the roadway, hugging the deer and crying because the deer had expired.
Oh
And so
no.
he couldn't get her back in the cab. We had to send the cops out there. Um, I mean, that's just very comical to me, who's getting out of the car and doing that. Also had
Right.
a call from a woman who had gotten a text message from her husband that said, um, in the bathroom at Target, under attack, things are getting bad, tell the kids I love them. And we sent out the full response. Well, it turned out he was just having some bathroom issues in the bathroom at Target. Had a bit of a bellyache, and she didn't realize he was joking. And we sure sent, you know,
Cavalry went
everybody
out.
out there. So yeah, some of those things that you just have to laugh, and that's how you get through it. Though, is those funny things, those comical moments that give you that brief respite from the bad stuff.
Yeah, that is very true. That is one of the things as well that I would talk to a lot of friends, family, mostly people that I worked with. Right, I we would when we would get together, we would talk about some of those funny things. I would talk about all these funny things, and then my wife, at the time, she would she would hit me on my arm, and she would go, Why don't you talk to me about any of this stuff?" And I said, "Wait, what?" And she goes, "All you do is tell me all of the, like, dramatic, horrifying shit." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know, but these are also a lot of the funny stories." So, because yeah, so I remember where there was a lady who called in with her husband, and she's laughing already on the phone, and it's New Year's Day, and I am laughing, or I'm not laughing. I'm hearing her laugh, and I want to laugh because she sounds just the way she's laughing sounds comical. And her husband is saying, "Stop laughing, please stop laughing." And I said, "Ma'am, what is it that's going on?" I'd gotten all the other information already and everything, and she goes, "Well, it's New Year's Day, and we came to check out our apartment complex that we run, and on one of the floors, every floor has a laundry, where everybody uses it, and there's a gentleman who is passed out drunk. He's currently snoring in there." And I said, Okay. So do you just need him removed?" And she starts laughing again, and she goes, "No, it's just that, I mean, yes, probably, but he's butt ass naked, sir. He is naked, and there's vomit and poop all over the walls." And
Oh
I said,
yeah.
"What?"
Oh yeah.
So so then I start we're supposed to stay professional,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
But she was laughing so much that I couldn't help but laugh with her. And and her husband again ends up saying, "Stop laughing." And she goes, "He's laughing too." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Oh, throw me under the bus."
Right. Right.
And yeah, they got out there. We ended up sending EMS as well, just low priority, just to stand by, just in case something else was going on. But nope, the guy was just drunk, and yeah, he had a time there. But those are the things that you end up hearing as well. Now, in your time in dispatch or anything, like, what are some things that you felt like proud of in the profession in dispatch, or even something that was rewarding?
Um, I, I feel like I was proud every day to do the job, honestly. But I became a trainer after only a year working there,
Mhm.
and so I was pretty proud that they trusted me. They thought they felt confident in my ability that I could train new dispatchers. And then just as my career progressed, becoming a supervisor and then becoming assistant director, um, I definitely felt proud of all of those things for sure. Um, so really, the dedication and the work that you put in to prove yourself in 911, I think I was definitely proud of that. And just, I mean, my children are proud of me because of what I've done, and so that means a ton to me. That they can say, it's pretty cool that my mom did this.
That right there has got to be some of the best feelings to end up getting, especially from your kids.
Yeah.
Because I remember, so I recorded an episode once with my kid's mom, and at the time, I think Logan was in 10th or 11th grade or something like that. And he was sitting off camera, and he was sitting at the table. And we get towards the end, and because what I wanted to do with having her on was to ask her, like, what was it like for you when I was in dispatch? Like,
Mhm.
tell me about that. So that's what we were doing with that episode. And then towards the end, I asked Logan, what was it like for you? And I said, you can just give a quick answer, or you don't have to answer at all, because he was sitting there doing homework, but he was off camera. And he goes, well, it's hard to miss something that you didn't have. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And his mom goes, "Logan," and he goes, "Well," I said, "No, no, no." I said, "That I'm gonna leave that in this." I I I wanted his real response, and that's what it
Hmm.
was, and
Hmm.
that's how he felt,
Yeah.
because I wasn't there, and that really sucked. Now, during this time, I wasn't in dispatch anymore. I'm working on the private side and, doing everything that I do now, and, a couple years later, his senior year, he wrote a report, and it was about me and what I do with dispatchers and sharing their stories and, trying to get those stories out for mental health and wellness and everything. And I remember he came home and he showed it to me and he goes, "I didn't understand at the time." He goes, "But I understand now. And I'm proud of you. You're doing good work." And I was like, just like
Right.
crying.
Right. Right.
Yes, but those are those good moments when
Hmm.
you know even more that the things that you're doing have some impact on especially like your kids and stuff because they understand and they appreciate the things that you've done.
For sure. And the sacrifices that, you had to make to, if they can understand, like, why couldn't I be at this baseball game, or why couldn't I, be there for this field trip or whatever? It's because you're doing something that is so important. And so it's a difference. I think it affects them, or I think it means something to them to know, yeah, I had to give up my mom for whatever this was, and she couldn't be there, but maybe she saved a life. So
Yeah, like look at the cool things that were going on. And now like when I'm traveling and stuff, my younger kids, my daughters, they'll say, "Ah, you got to go again." And Logan will say, "This is nothing compared to when dad was in dispatch."
right.
So, yeah, that is always hilarious and everything. Now if as long as you feel comfortable and everything,
Yeah.
um, and we all have probably a bunch of calls that stick with us, but are there any that, kinda stick with you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I feel like, a lot of times people ask, like, well, what's that one call? What's that one call? And I don't think it necessarily works that way. When
Mhm.
you've done it for so long. It's
Yeah.
more like a mosaic, right? Like, these audio snapshots of different things kind of burned into my brain. Um, like different things that you hear, right? Or like the calls that like trick your brain. I had teenage brothers playing with a gun, and the one shot the other one, and paramedics were there, and I still had the open line, and I could hear that the kid who got shot, I could hear him talking. He was, as they were wheeling him out to the ambulance, I could hear him talking, and then in my mind, it's like, wow, that sucked, and that was a hard call, but you think, okay, well, he's gonna make it, and then you find out later that he didn't. He died at the hospital, and so like, that tricks your brain into like, you thought this was one thing and it wasn't. Um, and I think sometimes like the calls that are like, incredibly personal, like my brother's godmother had a massive heart attack, and I took the 911 call from her daughter, and she didn't make it. And so giving CPR instruction while trying to separate myself to say, just at early in the call, I said her name and I said, "Hey, it's Gina." And then I had to get through it. I'm gonna cry. I'm
No,
gonna cry.
you're
I'm always
okay.
gonna
Take
cry,
your
right?
time. You take your time, please. Yeah, no,
Um,
it's
yeah, and then, I've had a couple of my officers that have lost their battle with mental illness. One of my firefighters, and I took all three of those calls, and so I think that it's like, it's not just that one call, but the collection of like sentences from those calls, or things that somebody said in those calls, that you still hear them, it still plays in your brain, and
well, and then, you end up after that having, you end up seeing them. And, you think about those moments where they were there, and I think and I tell people, especially now, more so when we start talking more about this stuff, which is okay, to be able to do that as well, because, ultimately it's therapeutic. It's hard to do, right? But when people are ready, it's a good thing to have it out there.
yeah.
And I've been telling people, even though whatever call it might be didn't have the outcome that we wanted, we can always reflect and give ourselves some grace in the fact that at least that person that we were talking to at the time, they were not alone.
Yeah.
We were there with them, and that we can at least be happy for, that they had someone there, because there are a lot of times that people don't have someone there.
Yep.
And we just happen to be the ones, right, who are taking these calls and going through this, and we're there for them. So
And I think it matters
anything.
to also, like, maybe something we don't necessarily think about, or isn't like widely talked about, is like, how lucky are we to be these people, that
Right.
we have these skills, we have this ability, and you know that we can be the voice in those moments, in the worst moments of people's lives. Like, why are we so special?
It's, it's an interesting profession. It's an interesting thing to think as well, that we have that type of, I guess, power in a sense, and that also brings a lot of pressure. I recorded, I filmed something with Business Insider recently, where I was talking about the profession and what it's like, and some of the parts that they don't add in there. I'm talking with the producer, and they're just kind of staring at me as I'm talking about stuff similar to what you and I are talking about, and I look at the producer, her name is Maggie, and I said, um, "Can you imagine that type of pressure? Just in the tone of your voice and how it can change certain things right off the bat when someone is listening to you." And she's just kind of looking at me, and I'm like, "She's feeling it." Yeah, because for real, that is a thing. I mean, that's like one of our superpowers, along with our dispatch ear, where we can hear everyone in the room, probably for like 5 tables down, wherever we're at. But I think that a lot of this as well, whatever something in our past, something that we've experienced, a lot of times I feel like some of these calls, um, I mean, I'm a firm believer of it, actually, that some of these calls are meant for us,
Yep.
depending on whatever experience it is that we have, that was meant for us. And you're right, just like everything that you're saying, like how lucky are we that we actually get to do this? We actually get to be there, be an actual hero to some of these people with just our voice, to be there for them while they're living through their nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, it's crazy to think, right?
Yeah.
You reflect on all of this time and all of these people that you talk to. Even today, my siblings will say, "How did you do that for all those years?" And I just look at them, I'm like, I guess I was just meant to do it. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And there were, just like folks that I spoke to that were either family or friends. And you toe that line on whether, like you said, you said, "This is Gina," or
Mhm.
me with my aunt one day, who was freaking out because she called in and thought that someone was breaking into the house next to her. And I couldn't get her to calm down until I said, "It's Richie." And she goes, "Ay, Richie," starts just talking to me like, "Oh, mijo," like, and saying all this stuff to me in Spanish and everything. And I said, "Everything is okay. It's actually one of our deputies." The house next to her, they had called for um, extra patrol over the weekend because they were going to be out of state. So the officer was out there, and she's like, "Oh, thank God it was you." But a lot of times with friends and stuff, I wouldn't say my name.
Right. You
I
can't.
would just
Yeah.
go, yeah,
Right.
because
Especially if, like, sometimes you get a call and it's somebody, maybe it's a domestic situation, or maybe it's something, like, you, hey, I'm just a voice here. I know I'm not involved. You don't need to know that I know now your business or anything like that.
right.
Um, yeah. So there is that, that towing that line of, that's not an appropriate time, but in that situation with your aunt, or with my cousin, and just to say, cousin, right? Everybody's your cousin in an Italian family, but um, just to say, hey, look, here, this is me, and we're going to get through this. We're going to focus on it, and we're going to do what we have
Right.
to do.
Yes. Yeah, and I think in some situations, if, I remember from calls, if someone asked me my name or something, I would tell them, depending on the situation, of course. But I think that also it just seems to add a little bit more humanity to it because
Yep.
now you're not just a voice, you've got the name there as well. And it's our job to build that rapport very fast
Hmm.
so that we can get the answers to all the questions so that they can get help as fast as possible. And sometimes, you've got people who they're negotiating. You've got a barricaded gunman, and now they don't want to speak to the negotiator. They want to speak to dispatch only
You're right.
because you've built that
Okay.
trust.
Right. Absolutely.
Again, what a crazy profession, man. Like we
How, yeah,
are
because then you think, how am I doing this? Like, when I think sometimes I'm like, who said I should have kids and raise children? Like who's told me that, who decided I should be doing this? But when it's your calling and it's the universe has said this is where you belong, then
right.
that's where you're at.
And you come from a bloodline.
Yes, yes.
You come
Generations
from
upon
a
generations. Yeah.
family of it. The way you were explaining it earlier in this episode, and I'm sorry, but in my head, almost immediately, I saw Gary Sinise in Forrest Gump when Forrest is saying, and his father was in this, and his father, like every single one of them, right? They were in the military, is what I'm getting at.
Right,
And
right.
it was just explaining it through the generations. So when you were saying that, I was like, holy crap, like everyone comes from public safety, and
Mhm.
that is awesome as well. Now, before we get to your transition from dispatch to the private side of 911, I gotta ask, like, how do you feel like this profession has kind of changed you?
Oof. I think
Right there, there's the answer.
in some ways for the better, in some ways maybe not.
Yeah.
I think that there were things that really affected me in a way, like so my children are teenagers now, but when they were small, they were babies and everything. I had severe anxiety about, like, you know, the things that could happen to them, because you hear the things, you hear all of these things that maybe in the abstract world, or maybe out in where people who don't deal with these things, like, don't hear about this stuff that happens, and when you hear these calls of, like, unfortunately, babies that die for whatever, or choking or injury, whatever it is. And so at that time, like, it was really hard for me. I had really severe anxiety about my kids, like something's going to happen to them. Like, I was like, felt like I was always watching them, felt like, like I might have been too protective sometimes. I didn't let my children eat marshmallows for years because I took a call for a woman, and she was just at work, a grown woman, and she was eating a marshmallow and she choked. Well, the fire department got there, and when you eat a marshmallow, if you're choking on a marshmallow, it becomes like gummy and like in your throat. And so they had tried all the things they could try. They even tried to, they said they tried to cut and get in there. And it was, as they were pulling it out, it was just like melted marshmallow, and she didn't make it. And it's something like that you think is just, oh, it's just, she's at work. She's just eating a marshmallow at work. And then her life is over, And so, like, for the longest time, I wouldn't let my kids eat marshmallows. Like, so I think, like, the things that you hear and the things that you experience affect how you proceed in life. And so I think, yes, it definitely made me a more compassionate person in a lot of ways, but it gave me some pretty strong anxiety. And I think we all have some sort of trauma that we're always going to carry with us.
Mhm.
But I think the trade-off, for what I know I've accomplished in my life, I don't know that it's that bad to have a couple of things that we all have our baggage, right? We all have the things that make us walk differently.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade it.
Have you have you noticed that you use your dispatch skills even today for staying calm in certain situations,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I ask dispatchers all the time when I go out and teach, like, how many of you have used your dispatch skills in real life?
Yeah. My daughter will tell me all the time, like, I'll make a phone call and she's like, oh, you used your dispatcher voice on that one. Or like, last weekend before, my son, he plays a million sports, and
Mhm.
he had a concussion at the beginning of October playing
Oh,
football.
no.
And now he got his bell rung real good at wrestling last week. So we take him and they do a CT scan and they come back and say, we need to transfer him to a hospital that has pediatric neurology because we think he has a brain bleed. And so mom me is freaking out, but dispatcher me had to be like, all right, we got this. We're going to go. We're going to figure it out. It's going to, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, definitely those skills of turning off the emotional part of you and turning on those dispatch skills, they're still there for sure.
Ugh, I feel you. I know that feeling, especially with kids and everything. So I know I've said this many times, but I'll say it again. My youngest, who is 9 now, Olivia. There was one time a few years back where we were gonna do like a dinner and a movie type thing in the living room, and she goes, "Oh, I'm gonna go run and get a fork," and I said, "No, you're not. You're gonna walk and get a fork." And she's just like kind of looking at me, and the older kids are like, "Yeah, we've heard the same thing." Many times, and it's because of a call that I took where there was a little kid who was running around with a fork, and I don't know how he did it, but he had it in his mouth and he fell, and it got caught in the roof of his mouth. The
Yeah.
kid ended up being okay. I mean, he was in a lot of pain, of course, but that is one of those things that I remembered, and I'm like, "Yeah, no, you guys aren't running with silverware. That's just common sense to begin with." And I will remind you, but, you know, it's stuff like that where I'll say, "Hey, be careful," or, "Hey, you know, this," or whatever, and they're like, "Dad, we're just." I'm like, "No, no, no. I know. I just want you to be safe.
Yep.
That's all."
Just humor me. Like
Yeah, I
sometimes you
know.
gotta just humor me. Let me be
Yes.
a little nutty
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Right, right.
I'm like, "You will appreciate it, I promise." So, you know, you spend all of this time in dispatch and everything. You take a break for a little while, you come back to dispatch and such, and then, you know, you move up the ranks and everything else, and then you decide to make a transition. Now, where was your mindset at, you know, during that time? And, you know, your decision to leave dispatch because, you know, I bring this up as well, um, because when I got the chance to work on the private side, it took me a few weeks to decide because for myself, I felt like I was betraying my dispatch family. I felt like I was, you know, leaving them behind, and I didn't just wanna leave them because we were also kinda short staff and stuff, and, you know, it was them that ultimately, you know, convinced me, like, you know, "You're doing things that are gonna help us and hopefully the 911 profession as well, so choose you, choose the family." And, I mean, I was leaning that way anyway, talking with the family and stuff, but it was hard to leave because that's what I knew for all of that time, and it really does get into your blood. So for you, what was that like for you on this decision to leave and make this transition, and how has it been?
I think part of it was I I no longer felt that I was serving in the same way being in an admin role. I didn't feel that personal satisfaction, and that's super important to me. Like need to feel like I'm helping. I did it. And yes, I was helping my dispatchers, and yes, I was, supporting them and, being there still with them, but it didn't feel the same to me.
Yeah.
And so then it just became like, well, what else could I, what else can you do? And the only place that I applied was actually RapidSOS, and I believe so much in what we do. And so when the opportunity was there, I didn't really need to think too much about it. I I was ready, and now I feel like now I am helping and supporting so many dispatchers, and I have 7 states that I oversee and support the dispatch centers there. And so now not so much helping my community or my first responders out in the field anymore, but now get to help the first responders in the dispatch center. It feels to me like I feel that again. I feel that satisfaction of feeling like I'm helping and feeling like I'm supporting and still being able to be involved in 911.
I love that because, yeah, ultimately you are helping so many more people, and it's a great feeling to be able to do that, but also put everything, like your knowledge, your skills, and everything into what you're doing now with this company and what the company is doing for all of those that used to be a part of that.
Right.
I get jealous sometimes, in the sense that I don't get to use a lot of the technology that's out there now, because when I left dispatch, it was at the end, or towards the end of 2013. And RapidSOS wasn't around. There wasn't a lot of this technology or anything that's out there now. But to think about, especially the mental health and wellness aspect of it as well. And what I mean by that is, when RapidSOS came into the fold, they basically solved the location problem. And early on, or again towards the end of my dispatch career, actually, is we would take these phone calls, because the area that we covered, there was a lot of state game area, and people would call on their cell phones sometimes, some of them being the cell phones that you can only call 911, right?
Sure.
And they're lost. And we would get to the point where, hopefully, if we were able to find them, do you hear the sirens? Do you see the lights flashing? We're doing all of this stuff, or sending a fax. I feel so old saying that, because some people don't know what a fax is.
Right.
Sending a fax to one of the cell phone carriers to see if they can ping the phone.
Right.
Yeah, to get a better location. And a lot of
Mhm.
times they couldn't. So then I'm driving home for almost an hour in silence, hoping and praying, especially if the call got dropped and we couldn't find them because we couldn't call back or anything, if they made it home. And that would suck a lot of time. So then this company comes out, and now, you can find people, you can see where they're at, from however, many, just the area, like they're right there. You could pinpoint them and everything. And it's just so much better. That's why I say I get jealous sometimes, because I see all this technology. I hear about this technology, and I think, man, I wish that I had that when I was in dispatch, just
Yeah.
like you probably do as well.
Well, the last center that I was at had RapidSOS, so I had come back from my brief break into a new center, and I was like, "What is this? Like, this is amazing!" And so, yeah, that was the first time I had ever been, working with it or having it as a tool, and yeah, it was mind blowing. The things that, like, when I started dispatching, it was like, if you got a phase 2, I remember when we started to get phase 2, and that location was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then you have RapidSOS, where it's like, you can see what room somebody's in their house.
I know.
And then what a difference, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I had posted a video for one of the projects, because for everyone who's watching and listening, you may or may not know, I've got this partnership with RapidSOS for the podcast and everything. I go out and I assist with some behind the scenes stuff and everything. And I had posted one of those behind the scenes videos, and one of the comments was, RapidSOS is the greatest thing to happen to our profession. And so it was a dispatcher saying that about, or from 911, that, it's the best thing to happen to 911. I was like, yeah, dude, like, it is really cool stuff. So before we go out of this episode, which has been awesome to have you on and learn more about your story and everything, I want to play something here really quick. And this is another project that I was able to assist and help with, but I got to do a voiceover for it. And I'll play it, and then we'll talk about it here in just one moment. So let me cue this up here really quick, and then we will watch this. This is really awesome.
Disconnection. Critical data trapped in silos. Wasting critical seconds. The choice is clear: a fragmented status quo that kills through silence and delay, or a connected future with AI clarity and speed. We choose a connected future because connectivity saves lives. RapidSOS connects every device, every agency, every company, and every community in a network that defends against the unexpected. We're the leading public safety AI company that unlocks mission-critical intelligence, enabling faster, smarter, more accurate emergency response. Public safety gets the intelligence they need when they need it. Enterprises get visibility that improves response outcomes, and communities are more resilient and lives are saved. Real-time data from the world's largest safety network of 700 million people using devices, apps, and sensors, over 200 global enterprises, and 22,000 federal, state, and local agencies fuels the Harmony AI engine delivering this intelligence. With every new connection, the network grows stronger, the AI smarter, and communities safer. We're building a world where people and technology unite. Because we're safer together.
That's cool.
Damn.
That was very cool. I like that.
How does that make you feel to see that, to be part of this company and everything that you're doing, your connections with those in public safety, your experience and everything? Like, I have goosebumps right now, but how does that make you feel as being, an employee of this company and just everything that they're doing?
Yeah, so proud. And I feel like it's not lost on me that we have and are changing the future of 911. Yeah, that's so cool. Like, even the 13-second story I've seen how many times, and every time I cry. Like, it's just some amazing things that we're doing. And then to hear the save stories and to hear the ways that RapidSOS helped, the dispatchers, for whatever they used it for in that moment is just, that's so cool to me.
That is awesome. I love it. And I'll say this really quick before we wrap here that I don't know if I can get this. So this right here is my voiceover mic.
Uh-huh.
And when I got this, I was listening to the music and I was watching, and all of those words and everything, I was saying it to a certain degree. And I thought, I need somebody else to come up here and listen really quick. So my daughters are homeschooled. So my older daughter, Lola, I texted her and I said, if you're not busy right now, run up here really quick because I need you to listen to something. So I had her come up and I said, I'm doing a voiceover for this. I need you to listen to this. So I read it in time and had her listening to it all. And we got to the end. She's like, oh, Dad. She was like, that is so cool. She goes, this company sounds awesome. I was like, they're doing some really cool stuff. So I wanted to make sure to put that out there because, they've been building this safety network for years and it just continues to get better and better. So thank you very much for being on. Thank you for what you do. And one last question for you. Out of all of your years in dispatch now, and with this question as well, it's not to change anything because there's a lot of things that we go through that lead us to where we are at today. But if you could go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your dispatch career, what would you tell yourself?
To not stuff it down. Hindsight is 2020, and knowing what you know now. Like I feel like I've told you this before. Like I cry at everything now. Everything makes me cry because I spent so many years not being able to and having to stuff that down. Like what you have done for 911 professionals is just amazing. And the fact that we can feel comfortable saying whatever it is and talking about it now, like, huge kudos to you for that, because we didn't have that. We weren't taught that. Mental health wasn't a thing. And so I would have said, you know what, go home and drive home and cry about it, or tell somebody about it. Like stuffing it down it's not the way to go. So that would be my thing that I would have told myself is don't stuff it down.
That is awesome. And that is perfect. And thank you very, very much for the kind words and just your insight on everything and what you do for this profession. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing.
Yes, this has been so much fun. So I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, you ever want to be a guest on the show, whether you are new to dispatch, seasoned dispatch, retired dispatch, I would love to have you on to share your story. I've been doing this for over a decade. It is my passion. I love it. And I would love to share your story. The easiest way to do all of this is to simply go to the link that is on the screen. And if you're listening to the audio only, it is links.co/IM911, and that is links with 2 i's.co/IM911. You'll find everything there. My email, social media, where to follow, where to hear the latest episodes of the Within the Trenches podcast, as well as Imagine Listening podcast, where you can get the free link to the Trenches community, where I have over 200 hours of free continuing education for dispatchers. 45 rounds worth of the Dispatchers Roundtable is on there as well. And also, it's the exclusive spot for the Public Safety Showcase. Every other month, I have a few speakers come on, and they just share their knowledge. They teach some classes for an hour or so. So make sure to check that out as well. Again, it is all free, so you can check that out. And also the Imagine Listening books, any podcast or dispatch merchandise you can find there as well. Once again, it is links with 2 i's.co/IM911. This episode has been sponsored by RapidSOS, Safer Together. Make sure to check them out, rapidsos.com, and everything that they're doing as well. And then you can see this on Facebook, X, as well as YouTube and LinkedIn Live. And for any clips from the shows, you can see them as well. Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, as well as TikTok. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.
Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life, through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But Imagine Listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.